All right, so the wait is over. The Honorable Jessica Lupo is Vice President Designate. The Honorable Robin Anabanja is Prime Minister Designate. The Honorable Rebecca Kadaga is designated to the position of First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for East African Affairs. And they will be reporting to Kakumiro's Robin Anabanja pending the approval of the Committee of the Whole House. Welcome to tonight's edition of The Frontline. We'll be looking at the cabinet, the pandemic, and the budget. My panel this evening, I almost called you Honorable Andrew. Mr. Andrew Mwenda.
You can call me Dishonorable.
Yeah, the Dishonorable Andrew Mwenda, the team leader at the Independent magazine. I must admit, one of the finest brains the newsroom lost to business. I always say that. I admire the journalist
Andrew. I'm still in the newsroom.
No, you're now
the newsroom didn't lose anything.
You're now in the boardroom.
I am in both.
Doing other things.
Mutual exclusive. But you forgot also to mention that I'm the old man of the clan.
We're still waiting for the name of the clan.
You see my grey beard there.
Once we get the name of the clan, we'll mention that. The Honorable Nathan Andala Mafabi is the Secretary General of the FDC, Member of Parliament for Budadiri West.
For the last 30 years, just like Museveni.
Chairman of Bugisu Cooperative Union.
Also for the last 30 years, just like Museveni.
And the difference between Andrew and Honorable Nandala is that he has subjected himself to the vote. His people have not yet found reason to replace him. Welcome to the Frontline, sir. Honorable Dr. Chris Baryomuzi, two doctors, the Doctor of Medicine and the Doctor of Books. So I don't know whether to call him Doctor. He's also the Designate Minister for ICT. He'll be the guy switching us off if we...
No, I will switch you on. I will switch you on, always.
He'll be the minister in charge of switch-offs. Welcome to the Frontline, Dr. Baryomuzi. And welcome back, Honorable Norbert Mao. We missed you last week on the Frontline. And this time it is not you to explain why your NEC members are on cabinet. Honorable Nandala has gotten a donation of one position. The junior actually, Dr. Chris is a state minister. Is Designate is FDC's vice chairperson for Buganda, who also acted as the party's president when the Honorable Patrick Amuria Toboy was on the campaign trail. Welcome, gentlemen, to the Frontline. We expect to be joined by Honorable Dr. Miriam Matembe. She's already joining us live from her residence because of the complications of the pandemic. We try to manage the numbers. Yeah, welcome to the Frontline, Honorable Dr. Miriam Matembe. It's a pleasure having you today.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
All right, let's start with you, Honorable Dr. Matembe. After the long wait, the cabinet list is finally here. It looks like the women have carried home a number of slots. Looking at that list, what's your take about the composition of the cabinet that the President announced pending approval of Parliament?
First of all, I thank you for inviting me to participate. I would have loved to be free of all this because it doesn't amuse me. But then because you people want me to speak, I speak. Now, I want to say on the outset that this cabinet is very, very well crafted for real gripping of power and entrenchment of the autocratic, and probably I should say dynastic, system of government of Museveni. It is really calculated to entrench the life presidency and probably the dynasty to ensure that the Uganda as a nation must remain in the hands of Rwachitura. Because this is a cabinet of reward, of really consolidating, getting Uganda to say, here I am for life, entrench me. In short, that's what it is. Secondly, as a person who was one time a cabinet minister, as by the way, a historical person in terms of what you call this mass movement you talk about, committed, with passionate and hardworking. By the time I joined the cabinet and left it, I came to learn that actually President Museveni does not value or consider a cabinet as an important institution of governance, that it should be the engine to drive the government. I was there, I stayed there, I saw it. He looks at a cabinet as a body which must endorse what he wants. And as you know, he has already said very clearly that I am not your servant. I'm not here to serve Ugandan. I'm here to serve my own ideals, my family, my thoughts, and what I want. So he gets the cabinet as a public endorsement of whatever he wants. And now, anybody who is listening to me really, yes, they say, Matembe, I oppose. But I want even to tell all those people seated at that panel, including Varyomunsi, that I was once highly regarded and very passionate to work for Uganda until I reached a stage when I saw that my vision and ideals for Uganda were not the ones for Museveni. While I was driven by a vision for Uganda, President Museveni is driven by personal ambition for himself, for his family, and for his ideas. And so we parted ways. But okay. I remained loving Uganda, committed to Uganda, and analyzing all those things that happen in Uganda. Now to prove what I'm saying, sure, who doesn't know that the position of a prime minister as the leader of government business, as the one who must ensure that the government is running in a proper way, doing the right thing, is supposed to be really an experienced, proven, profiled person, not only nationally placed, not just what they say, a rural mobilizer, but somebody who knows, who call and say, cabinet, this is what we must have, this is what it must be, and this is it. And the moment you see that person, you certainly say, yeah, you even feel in yourself that, yeah, I'm working under somebody or profile, I trust, I know. But you can imagine now getting a prime minister and getting ministers under that prime minister, some of them of high profile, some of them distinguished experience and wisdom, and you tell them, bow to this one. I mean, you can imagine, that is now a prime minister.
Honorable Dr. Matembe, if I can come in right there, shouldn't you be celebrating the rise of women as an activist, someone who has vouched for the position of women in this country?
Excuse me, my dear friend. I want to tell you that I'm a person who has been at the vanguard of fighting for gender equality and women's empowerment. Gender equality and women's empowerment in terms of giving effective women positions of decision making, those women who are capable of influencing the governance agenda and make it responsive for the interests of women and humankind in general. I want to say this one statement, that the principle of gender balance in terms of appointing women and men to positions of responsibility was entrenched in the Constitution at whose heart I was in making. And therefore, it is expected. I want to say that for the first time in the history of Uganda and Museveni's government, he has attempted now to implement that principle of gender balance.
All right, thank you very much. I'll get back to you.
Wait, it is not about picking women here and there and throw them in there and say, here we are, we now have gender balance. The gender balance is aimed at tapping on the experience, ability, wisdom, talents, and to effectively influence the decisions and make them human responsive.
Thank you very much.
I'm not going into that now.
I'll get back to you in a bit.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'll come back to you in a bit. Thank you.
You cannot say that you go and get and choose somebody, get a woman here and there, and say, here, I have put women here. Because you are rewarding them for you, they are rewarded to you rather than their effectiveness and ability to work. Let me tell you.
Thank you, Honorable Matembe. I'll come back to you in a bit. I need to bring the conversation to the studio here.
So, at village level, but we are talking of a prime minister in charge of government business who is supposed to drive the government agenda for the benefit of this country.
Thank you. I'll get back to you in a bit. Thank you, Honorable Dr. Miriam Matembe, coming to us live from her residence in Luzira. Thank you very much. I'll get back to you in a bit. Let's come to the studio. Honorable Nathan Nandala Mafabi, the person who acted as your party president a few months ago and your vice president for the party in the region of Buganda is now state minister for ICT designate. What did Najana Nkumbi do with that news?
I also want to say, first of all, thank you for giving me an opportunity to be here. And I've met my old friend,
Old man of the clan.
a young man, Andrew, once become old. Definitely you'll become old, whether you want it or not, if you don't die soon. But first of all, the appointment of ministers is the prerogative of the president. And unfortunately, when I saw the list saying he was quoting the Constitution, but below he was even attaching the NRM Secretariat staff, as if NRM Secretariat staff is part of the Constitution of Uganda. That's why I had an issue. So for me, appointing ministers, it is the responsibility of Mzee Museveni now. He can appoint anything he wants. And for my Wekiti Wasebugwao, it is her choice to do anything because she's a human being. She has been in the struggle. Maybe the journey is still long. She has reached everybody joins the struggle with his or her own interest. Some want to take power, some want to increase the value of how to be purchased at, everybody has his interest. So, Najana Nkumbi for it is continuing to work, and we are happy that it will be very dangerous. Maybe she has been working for the regime, but it would be very dangerous if she had pretended to be with us when her mind is going to serve in NRM. And since she has come, we wish her well. It is her choice. And we are not a prison. For us in FDC, it is a free entry, free exit. So we are saying, wish her well.
As Secretary General, have you spoken to her?
No, I haven't. But me, I speak to everybody. I've just spoken to Mao. He's a DP. I've just spoken to Andrew.
On this particular matter, your vice president is appointed to cabinet, yes.
So I have no problem speaking to anybody, and I will speak to her if I get an opportunity. Speaking does not mean only to talk about politics. I can ask her, how are you? Are you better? That's it. But,
so I'm just how are you?
So after that, I'm yet finding out as soon as maybe she meets Chris, then I'll ask her, how are you? So we...
Honorable Nandala, you're the administrative head of the FDC. Your vice president and immediate acting president is appointed to the cabinet. I'm not talking about greeting her and asking how the goats and chicken. I'm talking about a fundamental question of whether or not she's going to join the cabinet or she's still with you.
You see, joining a cabinet with us, they have appointed there. I think vetting starts tomorrow. I'm not sure. Is it starting tomorrow, Chris?
Next week.
Next week. So when she goes for vetting, then we'll know that she's ready to go. And we have not heard her saying, I've refused. We have not heard her saying, I have accepted. We're still waiting with actions. But if it's true she's going, I'm saying, oh, she will. You have said you have not talked to her. Of course, that's the president. She's under the office of the president. So I think the right person to ask that is Engineer Amriat, the party president. But me as the Secretary General, I keep record. So I'm now waiting to confirm. If she has left, then I cancel her from the book of the registered members because she would have left. So
All right.
as for now, I haven't got confirmation.
Thank you. Your take on the quality of the list, the name, the cabinet, yes?
Yeah, the cabinet list. I think, as I said, that is the M7's responsibility to appoint. But you see, he knows the reason why he has appointed. One of the things, sometimes you put, a leader must have people he mentors so that when he leaves, his legacy stays. Those are good leaders. But there are leaders who don't want, who want to live without even, they don't mind if they die or they without legacy, or when they want to live, or they don't want to see any opposition in their leadership. Now, such leaders will look for people who will say, yes, yes, no question. When you're wrong, he says, you're right, sir. When if this is black, then you say it is white, she or he will say white. So it is up to what M7 wants. Maybe he's looking for leaders who will come and when he stands up, they just cheer. When he sits down, they cheer. When he goes out, they cheer. So that's his responsibility. But of course it has an effect on the people of Uganda because these are leaders who are supposed to provide service to the people of Uganda, service delivery. So if you put up cheerleaders eventually, instead of providing service to the people of Uganda, it will provide to the appointing authority, which is M7. Now, I have seen the vice president is Alupo. Is it Major retired Alupo? She has been away for 5 years. Of course, sometimes when somebody has been away, you may watch and see maybe he's too angry. You're hungry, you may want to make them a bit turn a bit. That could be one of them. But of interest, I want to talk about that one before I go to the next one, is that in our culture, a woman, if she is married, like me, if my wife, by the way, I married from Teso. So my wife doesn't serve Teso anymore. He serves Subujusi, he cooks for my home, my relatives, everything he does for my home, my people. So in Christmas, maybe he gets a few little money to take to our home. So all the investments are in my area. So Alupo is married from, I think, Western Uganda.
Kabale.
Whatever. He's Kabale in Kenya, he's Western Uganda.
I'm being specific.
Okay, but no, I said Obujisu. So I think, in short, Alupo is from West, going southwest more.
You're donating her to West now?
Yeah, but you see, she's married there. I have given an example. I hope, Sabit, you're married. Nabanja, this is a mobilizer. She's a mobilizer, very chief. I've had Madam Dr. Matembe saying, Honorable Matembe saying, she's a village mobilizer. Well, we are watching. The cabinet is very interesting, of course. It has a mixture of everything. But also, but what I wanted to say about the cabinet is that, of course, sometimes we may say somebody is lazy until you have given him a hole to dig. You never know, maybe they could overdig. These people are claiming they are lazy. They may want to oversearch. But,
Nathan, yes.
Yeah, but I want to make one quick one. In leadership, you see, even sitting is very important. Even walking is very important. Even what you say is very important. Now, if you put a leader whom you think is very intelligent, but everybody has assumed is not, even if he or she speaks all day, nobody will listen. So we're worried some of these people, these bright boys like Mariam here, she will see Nabanja sitting there and say, what is she going to say? He will just be there pretending maybe on WhatsApp, what? No, they are not bothered, but he's disowned his body which is there. But his mind, his brain is not there. These ones. They are those ones. So I'm worried. I don't know.
Thank you, Honorable Nathan.
But also,
let me get back to you.
Just 1 minute. There was also no school for training ministers. So maybe in the first 2-3 months, they will have to find a way to train the ministers, train the presidents, train the prime ministers, maybe to help. But if it is not there, I don't know. But for me, I wish them well.
All right, Honorable Norbert, from your experience in the House, what's the message in this cabinet? What do you take out of it?
We have analyzed very many cabinets before. You have got to realize that the executive power, like Honorable Nandala Mafabi said, is vested in the president. So as I have been seeing ministers declaring what they are going to do when they're in that office. The truth of the matter is that it's the president who is given the torch. That's what we call a mandate. When you become a minister, basically what you get is like a mirror to reflect that light. And once you have that clear in your mind, then you stop having the misguided sense of entitlement. I think that helps to understand. It's also important that in the choice of a minister, the president, whoever he is, has to choose those who add value to an agenda. And as he sees that value. So we cannot start evaluating the ministers one by one. There are too many. Actually, I don't know many of them in detail. I'm in no position to comment about that. Now, the reason why it's called a cabinet, I understand from the history of government, starting from Britain, was that there was always a king, and the king would sit on the throne, and hiding behind the throne are people hidden inside the cabinet. So the king is, of course, facing all these difficulties, invasions, financial issues, austerities, rebellions. So the king must appear extremely knowledgeable and must be able to deal with issues. So the king would lean back and get some sound advice from behind the wooden door of the cabinet. So it is important that the people in the wardrobe really have something to add to solving the problems you face with the people. Now we have Corona. Obviously, in that cabinet, there's Jane Acheng. And
Dr. Musenero.
Yeah, I think when the president is puzzled about how to deal with the issues of Corona, he will lean back and say, we can handle. Then Dr. Cheng will whisper something, and he will say something which will make the rest of the country say, yeah, he really knows what he's doing. When it goes to works, he will lean back, and General Katumba Wamala, based on his knowledge. Dr. Baryomunsi, I don't know him as an ICT expert, but I know he has acted in that portfolio for a long time, including...
And at a crucial time.
And acted very well.
Well, that will leave to Ugandans, but we know you're acting.
No, I am saying you have done it. So now that is the meaning of cabinet. So we must look at the problems Uganda is facing. We have got an agitated young population that is playing, you may not say, maybe not a pivotal role, but you can say a catalytic role. The president loves quoting the Bible. Even today he was leaning heavily on the Bible. In the Bible, we also had a king who was old and exhausted, but unwilling to let go. He was called David. God's very good king, actually. Now,
He had favor from.
Man after God's own heart.
yes. So he was not living. He was, even a blanket could not warm him now. So one day, somebody had to play a catalytic role. His own son called, if you know your Bible, who was he?
Solomon or Absalom.
Absalom. So one day, Solomon's mother, called Bathsheba, comes and says, King, are you aware that you are no longer the king of Israel? And the king gets the energy to get up. Who is the king if I'm not the one? Says, yeah, Absalom. Don't you hear the noise on the streets? He has hired chariots. He has made a throne. He has got a priest, even got a prophet, and he has been anointed the new king. There is shouting and cheering, jubilation all over. You are in the past now. So with his last energy, he had to get up and he told his wife, the mother of Solomon, call Prophet Nathan immediately and call Solomon. And he immediately anointed Solomon. So the disruptive action, the catalytic action of Absalom forced a transition. A transition is an important issue within the ruling party for Uganda. And their main reactants in this process, their catalysts, they all have an important role to play in all this. The president will not only depend on the cabinet. The noise on the streets will also have to be understood, correctly interpreted, and responded to, not in a very dismissive manner. Then the economy. He will need very sound advice on how to deal with the soaring national debt. We are told it is sustainable. He has got to deal with an economy being crippled by corona. How to distribute incentives to keep people in business.
Okay, I wanted us to look at the task ahead of this cabinet. I just wanted to establish conversation about the composition so far. But Honorable Mo, you must have sighed with relief looking at that list. The rain that beat you in 2016 following the appointment of your own party members into that cabinet.
But it is you people in the media who make that a big deal. I think you recall very well my own reaction. First of all, the opposition and the government cannot be disjoint sets. You are talking about a cabinet, you are talking about a ruling party, but we are talking about a government which includes parliament and even the judiciary. As DP, our policy has always been consistent. We don't believe in what we call political untouchability, but we believe that we should operate institutionally. In fact, one of our biggest grievances in '86 was that there was no formal and institutional established relationship. So it was what they call the gentleman's agreement. More importantly, we are an opposition party. We are not a rebel group. You know, an opposition party has to first accept that there is a government in place with authority. A rebel group does not recognize that there is a government. Now, you must choose whether you want to be a rebel group or an opposition party.
From your description, I'm looking at Honorable Nandala like a rebel in the studio.
No,
if I'm to use your
I have enough experience in that kind of thing, and I speak from experience. When we were elected, and I was elected many years ago, '96, we were basically denounced. I've said this before, by our people who were very, very much aggrieved by the warmongering policies of the government, refusal to talk to the rebels, hardline calling them. So we came to parliament and we had to choose. Are we coming to parliament as rebels or are we coming to parliament as opposition? In other words, we had to accept that there is a government, even though the bulk of our people were fighting and resisting the government with arms.
Okay.
So it is a very important question. If you want to be a rebel group, be a proper rebel group, don't even recognize that there's any legitimate government, and go at it full throttle. Like those Bushmen went to Luwero, they did it. But now, you can't be, because when you're an opposition party, it is about your loyalty to something higher. And it also assumes that whether it is 30 years, whether it is 40 years, but it will go. So what are you building in the process?
All right.
Because you can't be an opposition party which conducts itself like a rebel group. The way we were being pushed when we were MPs of Acholi Parliamentary Group. You are MPs, but please support LRA if you want us to see you as our leaders. We were in a very hard place. So your question about relief or no relief is irrelevant to DP, because in DP we believe in dialogue, and we think transition in this country is not going to come from an election. I said it before the 2021 election. So what you need are even more citizen groups. These politicians, they will do their things, but we need also citizen groups to push, because after all, this is our country.
Thank you.
Uganda may be there until Jesus comes to take it over, but President Museveni and all the politicians who are in offices, they come and go.
Thank you.
So
let's listen to...
It is not even about sighing with relief. It is not about this and that, because even when it happened, we were not bothered. We said it is okay.
Thank you. Andrew, your take on the cabinet that will champion the country's governance, at least at political level, for the next, until there is a reshuffle.
Well, I have, just like my grandson, Norbert Mao, I've looked at this cabinet. I don't know most of these people. In fact, I have been asking myself, what is the role of cabinet? Theoretically, that is what we borrow from maybe Britain, France, or Belgium. A cabinet is supposed to be a group of people around the president who help him or her develop public policy and get it implemented. But is that really the role of cabinet in a poor country like Uganda? When President Museveni or Uhuru Kenyatta or this lady of Samia of Tanzania are appointed in cabinet, what are the most important considerations they make? Now, one of the best books I have read on politics in Uganda is by Miriam Matembe, incidentally, because I felt in that book, she quotes a lot of conversations between her and Museveni, and between her, Museveni and other people, which I felt gave us an idea, or gives the reader an idea, of what are the considerations President Museveni makes when he's appointing the cabinet. And I would imagine President Obote made when he was making the cabinet. I don't know about Idi Amin, but I would imagine if Mao was president, Nandala was president, even Baryomus, the considerations I would make. Where is Uganda today? And Uganda is an experiment at nation building. This is a geographical entity which was created by the British, and in it they packed together different ethnic groups. How do you formulate those ethnic groups into, say, what you'd call a nation state? How do you forge it? A lot of the things you do need to be of a psychological and emotional nature. You need to create a sense of belonging, that if I come from Kisoro, if I come from Busia, if I come from Karamoja or from Koboko, how do I feel as an ordinary person in Koboko that I am part of this enterprise, of this experiment called Uganda? If I come from Acholi, how do I feel a sense of belonging? From my own understanding, and if you look at Museveni and many African, post-independence African leaders, it was to use the cabinet as an institution for nation building by making it more representative of the different ethnic and religious groups that constitute a polity called Uganda. So there is Mwenda from Toro. He is a powerful pillar of opinion. There is Nandala from Bugisu, Mao from Acholi, Baryomus from Kigezi. And in putting them into cabinet, their co-ethnics feel like they are represented and they belong to that entity. So I think maybe that could be the most important part of what it is that is needed to build a cabinet. And these elites that you pick from these different ethnic communities need not just be only ethnic. Like right now we have to consider gender, you have to consider religion, you have to consider tribe, but many districts in Uganda are becoming multi-tribal. So there are so many considerations I assume presidents make in appointing a cabinet so that it is nationally representative. That is the first important thing, nation building. The second aim, I would imagine, would be, do these individuals help me as president build what I would call an electoral coalition? Because you see, ultimately, Museveni can only retain his power by being elected. So he must look at
the other options.
Well, he would have to go to stage a military coup. But right now, he has to have some form of election to legitimize his power. So the second question would be is, in appointing these different people, they must be individuals with the capacity to rally people in their areas to vote for me. So the first is nation building, to create a sense of belonging that all of us belong to this entity called Uganda. The second is that they must be able to rally their co-ethnics or the other constituencies or social groups they represent to vote for my party and for me. That is the second consideration. The third is they must constitute what you'd call a governing coalition. Do you realize now governance comes last? A governing coalition, can they help me govern? So I want to comment on this last part. From reading Matembe's book, I got the sense that President Yoweri Museveni does not believe that cabinet is an institution through which he can deliver a lot of the goals he sets. I got the sense from his, if Matembe quotes the president correctly, the message you get from the book, and I would advise everybody to read Matembe's book. The book is that the President Museveni believes he as an individual can do practically every single thing. The people he appoints must be what you'd call, like if you have an office message, people to run your errands around. She creates the impression that Museveni does not believe that if you have a Minister of Defense, he must be knowledgeable about matters of the military and will handle the portfolio in their own right as a minister.
Okay.
So that is a serious limitation. If what Matembe says in that book is true, it also reflects the kind of people that the president ultimately appoints. Because I believe that he can try to say, okay, this cabinet should be nationally representative in order to promote nation building. 2, it should be composed of people who can provide me the right electoral opportunities. But third, there must be the element of governance. Like this lady, Robina, they have appointed the prime minister. Previously, we had Apollo Nsibambi. When Apollo Nsibambi left as prime minister, there was Amama Mbabazi. When Amama Mbabazi left as prime minister, there was Ruhakana Rugunda. No one contested the president's judgment on those 3 people. Before then, there had been, I think, Kintu Musoke as prime minister. I mean, there was a sense that they were senior, experienced individuals who commanded the respect of their colleagues and therefore could lead cabinet. You can clearly see, for the first time, people are contesting the president's judgment on the choice of prime minister. And that is why he went to appeal to Jesus Christ and said, well, Jesus Christ picked fishermen. Of course, from a historical perspective, Jesus Christ was an unmitigated failure. Jesus Christ never created Christianity. Christianity as a religion, if you study historically, was created by Paul. Jesus preached. By the time he was killed, he did not even have one single person standing by him. Peter denounced him 3 times just before the cock croaked 3 times or something like that. And on the last day, hold a second, on the last day, Jesus was alone and lonely. Of the 12 disciples, he could not even count on 1. It is written in the Bible, and I'm not telling a lie.
Surrounded by women.
Yeah, exactly, 2. Maria Magdalene, I think, who had been his wife, and Mary, his mother. But if you read, the actual creator of the Christian faith is St. Paul. And I hope that the president picks a lesson from there. So I got a sense that in the choice of prime minister, people have raised issues and they are challenging his judgment. And if I was him, I would think much more deeply about it because Ugandans have never challenged his judgment. The first prime minister I appointed was a man called Samson Kiseka. After Samson Kiseka, he appointed the Adiebo, Cosmas Adiebo. Well, there were some questions, but in order to bring northern Uganda, which was resisting into the fold, people felt, okay, maybe that is, he turned out not to be good. But after that, there was Kintu Musoke, and there was a lot of, people could say, yes, you have appointed the prime minister after Kintu Musoke. He put the Nsibambi, after Nsibambi came Amama Mbabazi. So I feel like this time, his appointment does not reflect the aspirations of Ugandans to have. Sabit, let me comment on
Finally,
the third.
yes. We need to listen to Dr. Chris before we go for a break. Yes.
Sometimes I also wonder, these cabinets, what do they exactly do? Assuming President Yoweri Museveni looked for Ugandans who are very intelligent, technocratically competent, would this country perform better? I have always asked myself that. Would the government work? Idi Amin in 1971 appointed one of the best cabinets you can read. You go and look at the Uganda cabinet of February 1971. You had Edward Ruguma, he was professor of education. He appointed him minister of education. You have Professor William Banage, professor of zoology. He appointed the minister of animal husbandry or something like, or minister of whatever, but to do with animals. He got every professor, every skilled person, put them there. The cabinet did not last 2 years. It failed. So sometimes maybe the concentration of great talent in one cabinet may not be a very good thing. So where should we say the engine of running Uganda is? Maybe it is in the civil service.
Right.
That you need to have a highly competent team of technocrats in the ministries of that matter. And perhaps Uganda, instead of looking at ministers, instead of talking too much about Baryomunsi, we should ask ourselves, what is the infrastructure Baryomunsi has down in the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology? If you have a highly competent team of technocrats there, and they can develop policies, documents, and they can effectively implement them, then the minister should be at the end of the chain. He receives information, they advise him, this is what needs to be done. If he sits with very smart people, and they're able to advise him and develop documents on policy and things like that, this country would be governed better. I actually think that our obsession with cabinet is mistaken in the sense that cabinet should ideally be for political purposes to win elections, for political purposes to build the nation, for things like that. You do not need necessarily.
I'll come back to you in a bit. Honorable Dr. Baryomunsi, I chose you to speak last. I beg your pardon. I'm now speaking spokens.
Zombo style.
Yeah. but listening to all these sentiments about the choices made by the president, I know that you have the extra advantage of sitting on the Central Executive Committee of the party, though I am very sure you are not consulted on this one. But let's talk about this. The sentiments being expressed. No, I'm very sure about that you are not consulted on this list.
Are you the fly on the wall in the sick?
But let's hear your thoughts about what Ugandans feel about this composition.
The fly must have died. Because even the owner...
It is usually Margaret who has the flies. She's not here today.
Yes, thank you very much, Sabit, and good evening, viewers. Well, the cabinet is a creation of the Constitution. The Constitution says there shall be a president, there shall be a cabinet. So the president is commanded to constitute a cabinet because he cannot govern alone once he has been elected. And he had the prerogative to choose whom he wants to serve with in the cabinet. Well, we are saying there was no consultation, but we discussed in the Central Executive Committee many broad issues, including governance and so forth. We may not discuss names, but those discussions take place. And today we just passed a motion in the Parliament to authorize him to vary the number from what is provided for in the Constitution, because the Constitution says he's supposed to appoint 21 cabinet ministers and 21 other ministers, but with approval from Parliament, the number can be varied, and that's what we have done. He picks from Ugandans. There is no Chinese or Indian, no American who has been appointed in cabinet. All of us are Ugandans. Majority he has picked from those who have been...
Honorable Otto used to say there were 3 foreigners in our parliament. So
he has picked the majority.
He always spoke about three foreigners in parliament. But go ahead.
I don't know who those are. Of course, there are jokes where, like some of us who come from the border districts, people say you are a Congolese, you are what? Just light moments. But,
are you Congolese?
No. Just light moments in parliament.
You
But we are
Butogota.
So from Kanungu, Butogota is a border town, but it's in the other constituents. So he has picked Ugandans, majority from parliament, the 11th parliament, but he has also picked from outside, distinguished ladies and gentlemen from outside parliament. And like we've discussed, he has also picked from opposition political parties, like even the last government, there were members from UPC who serve in the government. They didn't leave their parties. And I think like Honorable Beta Mongi has been reappointed. So when he picks the Honorable Joyce Ebugwao, depends on the arrangement and agreement they have struck, she could be willing to join and leave FDC, or she could still be an FDC member and want to serve in the government. So the president reaches out so that the cabinet can reflect the national character. And like Andrew said, this is a nation building, so he tries as much as possible to pick from various categories, interest groups, women, youth, the elderly. Today you saw the debate in Parliament about the elderly being represented.
But now that you mentioned that,
yes,
does that make sense that we need a ministry for the elderly?
It does.
In a country
it does.
Struggling with a pandemic, with a bad economy after the beatings of...
It does. I will come back to that. So he has to look at the regional balancing. For instance, can you make a cabinet of Bachiga only? Ugandans would say, why is Uganda full of Bachiga only? He has to balance religion, cause an issue in areas like Chigezo, where I come from. People look at your face. So he has to make sure Karamoja is represented, West Nile. So he has that task of balancing the whole country. And that's why he actually asks that he varies the number so that Ugandans feel represented. You don't know how many petitions and memoranda I have on my desk as a vice chairman of NRM. People asking me, make sure that when the cabinet is constituted, our people are there. So people are happy. You may say people are not happy, but on the contrary, people get happy when their people from different categories get represented. And maybe it is premature to judge us, like when you say Ugandans are contesting the choice for the prime minister. Who are those Ugandans contesting? Could be you, the elites who are just in the boardrooms. I also know there are many Ugandans out there who are happy with that choice. And it's also not correct to think that it should be the professors, like he said, the Pharisees, the highly pressed, those who have been university lecturers who should occupy these positions. Who tells you the Honorable Robert Anabanja cannot effectively be a prime minister? In any case...
But Chris, that was Museveni's problem. He felt that Bobby Wine, who came just the other day, did not have the pedigree to be president. In other words, so should all NRM people go and say, okay, we no longer need him as an expert as Museveni. Let us get Bobby Wine. He's 38, he's young, and he's a fisherman. Because he was yesterday. So Museveni's justification for his choices is actually defeated by his own insistence that he, because he has greater experience, he's a Pharisee. So we should remove him and put a Bobby Wine.
But putting myself in the shoes of President Museveni, yes.
Use his own logic.
Yes.
In this election, Bobby Wine should have been the president. People campaigned for Museveni saying he has experience, he has pedigree. And they campaigned against Bobby Wine saying he doesn't have experience.
But you see,
Museveni is therefore saying, actually in the next election, people should vote for Bobby Wine because Museveni is a Pharisee, Bobby Wine is a fisherman.
Not really.
All right, listen.
You are getting it wrong. You see, Andrew, if I contest with you for a particular position, it's not my duty to promote you that Andrew Mwenda is the best. I would say Andrew Mwenda can't manage can't manage. So you don't expect President Museveni to market Bobby Wine at the best.
But that principle we can apply
the
moving
principle is
forward.
applying.
Yes,
No,
the
no,
principle
no.
can be
The
applied.
principle is applying.
For the president,
Yes.
use the idea that he has experience, he has pedigree. In other words, he's a Pharisee. He's saying, no, that is not needed. In which case,
No,
listen,
no,
you
no, no.
look people, you listen
What
to me
is-
very well.
All right,
And now you have really,
What he said was that in the constituting cabinet, he put fishermen, but also Pharisees and Sadducees, a mixture of what Ugandans look
after
like.
going underground.
I can see he has appointed minister
So-
of communication. Now you are cleaning up his act.
No. So he has to make
So-
sure that cabinet reflects what Uganda is.
Dr. Chris,
So I
here's
find-
the point.
Yes.
We're due for a break, but I think that we need to touch on this. I sat down and I looked at that list and I said that I know Dr. Chris Baryomunsi.
Yes.
I know Chris Baryomunsi, the backbench Commissioner of Parliament. I know Chris Baryomunsi, the Minister of Health. I know Chris Baryomunsi, the Minister for Urban Planning. I know Frank Tumwebaze. I know what they have done on the floor. I know the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. I know Thomas Tayeba. And I'm trying to figure out how all these great minds will report to the Honorable Robin Anabanja. and that puzzles them.
Why not? You become a prime minister by virtue of being appointed. So if she has been appointed, she becomes our boss. But this is not a university that I'm a lecturer, so the vice chancellor is a professor. No, this is politics. If she has the Honorable Jessica Rupo is now will be the vice president. Robina will be the prime minister if she has been appointed and the parliament has approved. What's wrong with that? And why don't we give them a chance?
What about the undercurrents? You know the NRM much more than I do.
Yes.
You know the Game of Thrones, the power dynamics and everything. You know that the previous prime ministers were able to move certain things because of their political clout and their abilities. So I think these are pertinent questions.
So who tells you that the current or the incoming prime minister won't move things? Why do you prejudge her? Why don't you give her a chance? If we're having this debate 2 years after, then you can say she has failed. Why do you think she would fail? Because
no, we're just asking questions about the choice, and she's going to be Prime Minister of Uganda.
Yeah,
so these questions will continue to confront you, the appointing authority, and herself.
Because the question also comes, so who should have been the Prime Minister anyway?
Maybe you, maybe...
Yes, maybe later on I will become one.
But I want to ask you,
yes.
I have never sat on and I've been on media since 1990-something.
Yes.
Museveni has never appointed a prime minister and people ask these questions. This is the first time. When he appointed Amama Mbabazi, I didn't see anybody question Amama's competence. When he appointed Rugunda...
Are you sure? Did he get unanimous approval of the parliament? There were debates, there were those voices which never wanted him.
Because they disagreed with him politically, not because he lacked the experience or pedigree. Even when they appointed the Sibambi, there are really questions. On social media, there are so many videos of this young lady that are going around. And I don't even think it's her age. Maybe it's the way she handles herself. It is the ideas she expresses. Even the videos I personally have watched, she's below par. You cannot appoint her to run a cabinet of people who are much more senior and experienced. She could have been younger, but much more collected, technocratic, perhaps experienced, or whatever it is. But she lacks the pedigree, and that is the message that you're getting now. You, as Minister of Information, you should receive this information, digest it, and take it to your boss.
All right.
You see, when you go to the Bible,
the choice of prime minister does not reflect what the people of this country, okay, when we say the people of this country, it's not every single peasant.
Which people are you speaking for, first of all?
Because we also...
That's also important.
Elites matter. Museveni is not a peasant. Museveni went to university. Museveni cannot govern this. It is
even Robina is a graduate.
But to say that elite opinion does not matter, let him go to my village and pick Yamlesiri to come and be prime minister if he wants. But you cannot dismiss the question of elites.
Right.
Why do we... Just a moment, by the way, Museveni the other day said that I have younger people who are children of those who were in the resistance, who have gone and studied abroad. Maybe they have studied at Harvard or at Yale, at Stanford, at Cambridge. Now they're educated, they have grown up in a middle-class background. They are not suffering from poverty. Oh, he himself has made already these points to say that, yes, a society that is aspiring for advancement requires a caliber of leaders with a certain pedigree, with a certain background, with a particular education, with a particular exposure and experience. So you do not go back to the village and pick every Tom, Dick, and Harry who is a farmer, a fisherman, a fishmonger, a lorry driver, and say, you are following Jesus.
All right.
No.
Let's proceed this way.
The Honorable Robin Anabanja is not Reverend
No,
Tom
let's proceed
Dickard.
this
But
way.
it's the president who said he wanted fishermen.
Andrew, let's proceed this way.
She's the elected member of parliament for her districts for the third time. She has served in many capacities. She has been a minister of state for health. So you cannot say she has just been picked from the village.
All right,
but even if you pick somebody from the village.
Let's take a break.
Even if you pick somebody from the village.
Let's go for a break. When we come back, we'll continue the
But
conversation.
give me a chance and explain how cabinet works.
No
because-
problem. We'll get to
Yes.
that. We'll also be joining Honorable Dr. Miriam Matembe from Luzira, her residence, in a bit. The comments are coming. A lot of people asking why we are questioning the credibility of Honorable Robin Anabanja on my Twitter handle. Say we will
No,
accept.
even the vice president were questioning, but
They're
they
saying we
don't-
will accept by force that she's the right Honorable Prime Minister. Keep the feedback coming. By the time we went for a break, Honorable Dr. Bariomuzi wanted to educate the country on how the cabinet works. I'll hold you for a bit. We need to let Dr. Miriam Matembe go. And we'll get back to her to get her final thoughts on this discussion and as well as the task ahead for the new cabinet, what they should look out for. Then we'll return the conversation. Now let's go live to Luzira and join Honorable Dr. Miriam Matembe. Thank you for your patience in listening to us. Let's hear your final thoughts on this issue.
Thank you very much. I have really listened to all of you people. I want to thank them for their talk. But before I say anything else, I would like to make a comment on these biblical quotations. I really feel bad many times when people just refer to the scriptures for the sake of just supporting maybe at times the wrong things, and they just ridicule the word of God and refer to it just like that without knowing its deep meaning. I mean, I've been seeing, I'm sorry, I don't intend to judge, but I talk of what I've been seeing. The high levels of idolatry in this government right now and in this country. We've been seeing the chief of Basamize at State House as a big character there, representing all the Basamize in this country, Mama Fina, and it is just open and public. And yet the word of God says, please, I am the only God, honor me. You cannot be cold or hot. I mean, we've been seeing how much idolatry has been embraced by the government and government officials and expressed it openly at State House, chief campaigners, and either you belong to that or belong to the other. Now, but all the time, we are quick to quote the scripture. Now I understand this scripture of quoting fishermen. Yes, Jesus chose fishermen. Why? Spiritually, that later on, they will not fish, but they will fish human beings for him, what was later done. Now, one thing I want to tell President Museveni, that yes, Jesus chose these fishermen, and as Andrew said, they remained weak, they remained fearing, they never helped to implement his agenda, which he had established for 3 years, until Jesus had to die. And when Jesus died, then he released his power through his Holy Spirit to fall onto these people. They got strengthened and they worked. So he needs to know that if he have chosen this fisherman, he needs to die first and then release the power upon them to do the work. He cannot live with them and say, yes, I have my fishermen here. I mean, if God and Jesus did their things which were spiritual. For instance, when God chose Moses as a shepherd to shepherd his children through the desert up to the time of taking over the Canaan land. When it came to take over, he said, the role of the shepherd is ending here. We need now a warrior in form of Joshua. He should know, God chose David as a shepherd to shepherd his, children. So you just can't come out and say, quote scripture and use it ridiculously like that, and you think you are doing the right thing. Some of us don't like that. Now, having said that, you were saying I conclude on this matter. For
Yes.
me, my major, I said I don't know all of those people. I don't know them, women and men. I wish them well. But what hurts me and what I want people to be honest about, I mean, this is Uganda as a country, as any other country. Everywhere in the world, who is a prime minister? Who is a vice president? I want us to focus on these particular two positions. A vice president is supposed actually, in terms of capacity, experience, skill, and profile, to be like equivalent to the president. Like alternative, once the president is not there, then the vice president is there. The president cannot choose a fisherwoman to be an alternative to her, to him. So what is unfortunate, which I want Ugandans to see, you may critique me, you may hate me, but God gave me a mouth to speak the truth. The vice president office, in fact, when I was making a constitution, we wanted to make vice president a running mate, like other countries do, because she's as qualified, as capable, as efficient as a president. Because once he's not, the president is not there, then the vice president is there. If I may remind you, by the way, when you read my book, I remember when President Museveni told us, look, vice chair, I chose Madam Kazwe as a vice chairperson. But me, I know what I'm doing. When I choose her, everybody says women are happy. Then the Basoga are happy. Then the Baganda also, I've chosen their married women. Then they are very happy. It is not about effective efficiency running of government. Now, unfortunately, the office of the vice president has become now a dead one, a silent one. Can anybody remember one day when any of the vice presidents in this country has ever acted, and we know that there is a vice president acting because the president may be sick or is resting or what? No. Now, eventually, the last one, Honorable His Excellency Sekande, nobody ever even think over he existed or what. Now, the office has just turned like over a sleeping sort of resting place for anybody. And in fact, I personally, as a woman with passion, I look at Tarupo, I feel sorry for her. If she has passion, she's a young lady. If she's energetic and would have had tried to be active and he had to be shut down and silenced very quickly. So you can see that is a position worldwide which is a very important position, but in Uganda it is not. Prime Minister, a very important position, but in Uganda it is not. President Museveni is telling the whole of the Uganda, you, I'm the only one who matters. Everybody else, please look to me and bow to me.
Thank you very much.
I want to ask you, if you find this gentleman who is abana baita bazukuru, these are bazukuru, I'm here with my bazukuru. How can a muzukuru advise a grandfather and a grandfather listens? Just laugh at it and say, young lady, just keep quiet, let's move.
Thank you very much.
It's quite unfortunate for some of us who see things and speak truthfully to see that what is happening. But anyway, for me in the final analysis,
yes,
to tell you the truth, I don't have any faith, I don't have any hope in President Museveni's government to steer Uganda to anywhere, because Uganda is not central to his program. His is a personal ambition and not a vision for this country.
Thank you.
So we should continue praying. Let us pray that one day God will deliver us and we start afresh. Like when he came in with the movement, we were delivered from those swines and we started afresh.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Dr. Miriam Matembe. Thank you for sparing time to speak to us tonight. Let's bring the conversation back. I wish you a good night from the panel here. I'm getting interesting feedback on Twitter, and someone called Bob at Robert K24 is saying a lot of people, most of the guests are undermining Honorable Nabanja and Jessica, which is unfortunate. He said, would you he's asking that we give the profile of these two ladies to guide the discussion. What I know is that Honorable Jessica Lupo served as Minister for Youth Affairs before she was appointed Minister for Education and Sports, and then she lost the last election. She lost her Katakwi woman MP seat to Violet Adome Akurut, and then she was dropped from the education docket, so she has spent 5 years in the cold and returned in the recent election as a woman MP for Katakwi and is now Vice President designate. I know that the Honorable Robin Nabanja is serving her 3 straight term, consecutive term as a woman member of parliament, first for Chibale and now for Kakumiro after the creation of that. I also know that prior to that, she served as a resident district commissioner and she served as commissioner of parliament, and her recent deployment was as state minister in the health ministry. That's what I can pick off cuff in regard to
Sabiti, I think that people need to understand.
Just this also, just this, because you need to get this. Another person is saying, I think Matua Job, yes, Richard is saying, can Andrew qualitatively say what Uganda achieved in the late Nsibambi's, Dr. Rugunda, and what Uganda achieved under their reign? That is so extraordinary that the Honorable Robin Nabanja cannot do.
I am happy
and he also thinks that I am very biased on the Prime Minister designate. I just wanted to state that I am simply asking the questions to guide the conversation.
And you don't have to feel yourself.
Yes.
But Sabit, let me just answer this gentleman.
Yes.
You see, it is very difficult for us to know what Museveni even has achieved anyway, because if you make an argument, it's so difficult to know these things. When I was arguing with somebody, I told them, when I'm writing a Museveni has presided over, it's difficult for me to say Museveni has engineered X, Y, Z on economic growth or whatever it is. But let me come to a prime minister. You see, I think the concern of many Ugandans that are raising these issues about this lady Robina, it is not her competences to manage as prime minister. It is what she represents. When you appoint a prime minister, people are looking at what does it represent to you. Assuming we are sending a prime minister to represent Uganda at the AU, at the United Nations, wherever it is, what kind of person are you sending? Those who meet that person receive, she's representing Uganda. And if she's representing Uganda, what kind of representative of Uganda, what are you saying Uganda represents? So it's not about what she does as the job. I have already explained earlier that we actually, many Ugandans want a minister with technocratic competences. I don't think that's why it is. You need to have a very good civil service. Once you have a minister, a lot of information, a lot of activities that are done by the bureaucracy, by the system, can then be reflected in the work that the prime minister, but in this case, Robina, it's not her competencies, it's what does she represent? When she stands out there to speak, I'm sure you have shown her videos, is that the prime minister Ugandans are proud of to see? Because a prime minister represents something. It's not what she does, but what she represents.
Thank you. Dr. Baromus, I think it's time to listen to you. But Andrew, again, the other side of the coin is that the elite, nice suit-wearing people like you and Honorable Nandala will raise that question. But what does the everyday Ugandan want in a prime minister? That's the fundamental question.
Does it represent the average Ugandan?
And the average Ugandan is not Andrew Mwenda, is not Honorable Nandala. These are nice suit-wearing men and women who can afford a good life. So maybe in fairness to her, what do the people of Kakumiro, for example, see in her to send her to parliament for 15 years? I think we need to examine that.
I think that even President Museveni will not agree with his own argument. If he was to select the president of Uganda, you read his book, Sowing the Mustard Seed. Somehow he says that highly educated people avoid the politics. And I'm quoting him verbatim. And that is why school dropouts like Milton Obote ended up becoming, leading us to independence. He himself, in his own book, Mustard Seed, he does not agree that Kyamulesire, Odong and Mokasa from the village after grazing their cows or fishing, they should become and be president. He also felt that you need well-educated people to lead.
Let's listen to Dr. Baromus.
Let me start by answering Dr. Matembe that Uganda is not a theocracy, that state house in Entebbe belongs to the Archbishop of Church of Uganda and the Catholic Church, and Mama Fina is a state house for all Ugandans. We are not a theocracy. Therefore, it's not correct to say some Ugandans should not reach state house. Now, secondly, even when President Yoweri Museveni assumed power as a president, there are people who wrote him off. He was just slightly over 40. But I'm sure many right-thinking Ugandans know and believe that he has done a lot of good work in Uganda. Going back to the Bible, when you go in the Old Testament, there was a prophet called Jeremiah. When you read how God chose Jeremiah to do prophetic work, he was young. Jeremiah himself feared. He said, I am too young. I don't even know how to speak. But God assured him, no, do not be afraid. I am with you. I will give you the words. And if you follow the Bible, Jeremiah did tremendous work, like foretelling the fall of Jerusalem, the raid on the land of Judea by Nebuchadnezzar, and so forth. And he did great work. So it's not correct to just say, Robert Anabanja is not sophisticated, she's not a professor, therefore she cannot manage. We should give her chance.
But Doctor, have you asked why people are not questioning your appointment, that of the Honorable Thomas Taiba, that of the Honorable Frank Tumolo?
No, it depends who.
The context, yes.
There are guys who think I'm not supposed to be a minister. When you go on social media, people don't support me. You cannot be supported and loved by everybody. So, Robin Anabanja, first of all, is not a Tom, Dick, and Harriet. She has been picked from the village. She's an elected member of parliament, and I don't think the people of Kakumiro are so silly that they have kept electing her and voting her to come to parliament. She has served in many responsibilities, and RDC, she was a councillor, she was a teacher, we elected her a parliamentary commissioner, she has been a minister, so and therefore...
Everybody who has been elected MP can be a prime minister.
You go and try to be an MP and see whether you will win. So...
Yes.
This is politics. I said this is politics, not university and so forth. So for me,
this is a country, Honorable Baryomuzi.
Yes.
And government business. Yes.
And I am also a member of this country. So we should give her a chance. We shall evaluate her. But you see how cabinet works, is that there is a system which supports you. I do not have to be a professional in ICT or an expert. But the way cabinet functions is that a minister, you are the political head of a sector, and you give political guidance and direction. There are technocrats headed by the permanent secretary, directors, commissioners, who do the technical work. When we sit in cabinet every week, this is a collective group that discusses policies which are generated by ministries and are processed by these technocrats. It is also not correct to say President Yoweri Museveni comes and commands the cabinet and just brings his views and you get up and say, thank you, sir. No.
Is that very far from the truth?
Very far. What happens in the cabinet is that...
Based on precedents, practice, the things that
Which precedents?
What has happened?
You see, there's a difference between what you say here and what the reality is. Luckily enough, I've been a member of cabinet. The business in the cabinet is generated by ministries. The technocrats, under the supervision of the minister, prepare policy papers, which are then organized by the cabinet secretariat and put on the order paper of cabinet. And you discuss. Sometimes the president chairs. When he's absent, the prime minister chairs, and everybody is given a chance to give his or her view. And the cabinet, the way you make decisions, you generate consensus as a cabinet. It is not true that the president comes and forces on your throat his views. He has come with his positions and we challenge them and we reverse them as a cabinet or amend them. So it's not correct to say that in the cabinet we are a bunch of useless fellows who wait for the president and clap for him. No. And he respects opinions and views of everybody in the cabinet.
Okay.
So once consensus is arrived, then that's a cabinet position where everybody is now expected to support it, and then we take those positions to parliament or the public.
Okay.
So once you have an infrastructure, even Honorable Robin Anabanja, yes, you are saying she has weaknesses, whether they are there or not. But once she has an infrastructure in the office of the Prime Minister, she will be able to drive that office and she will perform.
Okay.
And that's why she's given deputy prime ministers, she's given a minister for general duties, she's given other ministries under the office of the prime minister, and all these collectively now function at the office of the prime minister.
All right, thank you.
She's a young woman. Ugandans want women to be in high positions. She's the first woman prime minister. She's young, born about 50 years ago. She's a bridge between the young people and the old, and therefore she fits in the bill of what many Ugandans expect.
Thank you.
Again, if they had appointed an 80-year-old person, you'd be here complaining. President Museveni has brought an elderly person. Now he brings a younger person, a woman. Again, you are complaining.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Chris.
So
I want to give Honorable Mao
on Tuesday, I will be moving the motion in the Parliament
for her approval.
for approval, and hopefully she will be approved by Parliament, and the system will support her to deliver as a Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. I want Honorable Nandala and Honorable Mao to have say before. I wanted us to touch on the question of the pandemic. It would be unfair of us to leave this stage without talking about it for the next couple of minutes. But Dr. Baryomuzi, yes, what does the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda do? I'm getting a lot of that question. Someone is saying they have had to get monthly reminders that His Excellency Edward Kiwanuka Sekandi is still the Vice President. What does the Vice President of Uganda do?
The Vice President,
what does his day look like? His or her day look
appears, deputizes the President, by and large, if I make the summary. And it is not true that when the President is away, he doesn't delegate the Vice President. Actually, when he leaves the country, when he's away, he's writing delegates the Vice President to act.
You really have to convince me on that one.
But he doesn't have to call a press conference to say, I've gone to America and therefore His Excellency Sekandi will be acting. He doesn't have to do that, but he does it. And the Vice President is part of the office of the President. Well, to an extent, it depends on the individual who is occupying the office and how active you make it. But there are responsibilities. We vote a budget to run that office. Because
I'm trying to put my hand to what His Excellency Edward Kiwanuka Sekandi has been doing in the last 10 years, and I'm scratching my head. And that's the feeling of a lot of people.
Yes.
Again, you'll accuse me of speaking to elites, but there's that sentiment out there.
You not knowing what has been doing right mean he has not been doing anything. Those are two different things.
I have seen him at birthday parties, at social functions. That's all I remember about the Vice President.
By the way, I think that Sekandi was the best Vice President you could find anywhere in the world. Because he understood that he was a Vice President, was not a President. Bukenya's problem was that he tried to prepare himself to be President and got into the way of a person who was not planning to leave. So if you are Sekandi, in fact, I'm surprised Museveni removed Sekandi. Sekandi understood that if you are serving a Vice President to a person of your Museveni type who is not planning to leave, you must keep a very low profile. He would leave his home, go to his low chambers. Hardly would he even go to the Vice President's office. And he told Museveni, well, if you need me, just send for me.
No,
I will not interfere.
But you see,
finally, Dr. Chris,
don't show ambition.
There is a lot of work which we do, which is not necessarily captured by the media. For you, maybe judging from what you have seen in the news and so forth. There are many assignments the President gives the Vice President. Most of these may not be visible to the naked eye.
They leave footmarks. They are testimonies.
The President delegates the Vice President and the ministers to do very many things.
All right.
But you may not be able to capture them. The Vice President attends the cabinet.
Just attends.
No, attends and participates. And actually, the Prime Minister chairs on behalf of the Vice President.
Why chair on behalf of someone who is there?
Well, that's the arrangement that is made in the cabinet.
Why? The Vice President is supposed to be President when the President is not there.
It has not started with the current or outgoing Vice President. It has been the tradition in the cabinet. And because the Prime Minister is the leader of government business in the Parliament, they arranged it that way. But he first seeks permission from the Vice President to chair cabinet.
Thank you.
So it is not true that His Excellency Sekandi has just been sitting in office. I know for a fact that there are many assignments which are given to him. He's not a media person, but when he goes to discharge some function, he must call the press, NBS, to cover him. There are many activities which he undertakes.
All right, thank you.
Which
now,
may not
the next,
be in the media.
Honorable Nandala, and finally, Honorable Mao.
Yes.
Yes.
Before I do the question, for us, Bugis were very happy they gave us the minister for the elderly. They chose the elderly himself, and they sworn that we just to deserve one elderly. And they left no. Now then they got us. Do you know where they went? They sent them to Karamoja. One is a minister for Karamoja, the other one is assistant in Karamoja. So they have discovered the producers don't want to look after Karamoja. So by having said all those,
yes, but they cabinet.
No, that's okay. And also,
I can perfectly understand why Chris was the choice for ICT minister.
Yeah, but that's why I want to put a question to him. And by the way, even the fishermen, by the way, you have not read the Bible very well. I think the president will need some of us to help him in the Bible. But also fishermen must be intelligent fishermen. So I'm sure Jesus picked intelligent fishermen and never picked because
but
so who are the silly fishermen he left?
But we don't know.
but
But
Dr. Bariomuzi, for the record, Jesus picked fishermen. That means they already had a skill to fish, and he said, "I will make you fishers of men."
Yes.
Exactly. So you take people.
So there was a skill.
Yes.
And then he said, "I'll make you now fishers of
So
men."
are you saying that we don't have skills, those of us who have been appointed?
No, for you, by the way, in the wrong ministry. It means of ICT, that means if you don't follow what the technocrats doing, you don't assume that you know everything. You will go down with it. But what I wanted to say,
You see,
what is
the work of a minister? The work of a minister is to give political direction
exactly,
to the sector.
that's why I'm saying you listen.
Knows to be a technocrat.
If you don't listen to them, you will go down with them.
No.
Because if they,
I listen, but I guide them.
Guide or not, you don't know. So, but I want to ask you.
Who tells you I don't know?
No, maybe you may.
Who tells I don't know?
There was
You have a wrong perception and appreciation of what the ministers do.
Yeah, you don't know.
Ministers give political direction,
They don't know.
supervision.
How do you give direction on what you do?
What we don't know.
Who tells I don't know?
No, but you must don't assume that you ministers, you give direction in what you want to know and think anything will happen. That's why many of you have been failures in ministries. But because
How do you measure failure?
No, because
For instance, why do you assume I don't know ICT?
maybe you may be knowing.
Why do you think I
But
don't
the
know?
others were saying they have been given ministries, even you inclusive. I'm not so sure until you perform that they may even go down with them because you cannot. If you're advising me on something, I must be able to interpret. Otherwise, you can advise me even give me wrong advice. But my question was this. You agreed during the election that if you're a second member, you cannot be a minister.
Who agreed on that?
It was there.
That's not true.
No,
Before
no.
you proceed,
No,
that's
no,
not true. There is
no,
no
no,
platform, nobody which ever discussed that and agreed.
Okay, maybe you never.
Because the president is chairman of the party, he's the president.
That's okay now.
Honorable Oranya is vice chair, Northern is the speaker. So that agreement is not there.
No, but that's why Chiwanda never went. You know, when the Chiwanda, yeah.
He had his own reasons.
You know, yeah, it was a part of the, he was very clear on that.
You know, don't come here and start discussing speculations and falsehoods. I have
Okay.
been.
But I want to make my question.
You know, Honorable Bariomuzi, one of the things you'll be implementing
Is
when you
the-
go to the ministry is called minimum broadcasting standards. If I don't have order on this show,
It doesn't work.
I'll have
But also,
letters.
if you don't have information, you
No,
ask, but you don't.
I'm saying we do it in an orderly way
Yes,
because I don't want letters from your office. We have been safe for a while.
It
So
shouldn't be heckling.
yeah,
shouldn't-
listen, let's
But
listen
you
to each
is
other.
also national guidance. I have to guide
No,
you.
you guide in an orderly way.
No, but
so you listen to him,
the way I'm
and then
saying-
you respond. Yes.
The way I'm saying, it is going to collapse. Because if you are not a good listener,
No.
and I'm advising you, don't use the PhD, the what, that you assume. You will get a technocrat. If you don't listen, he will make you go down. But that's for tomorrow, another day. But the question I want to put across, in your mind of minds, cabinet is supposed to help the president for purpose of performing for people of Uganda. In your mind of mind, is this cabinet really, forgetting about regional balancing and what, really going to deliver, given that if you go here, you get this one was appointed because he had to do X, Y. He had to do Y. You as a minister for guidance, who might be misguided, is this cabinet really, in your mind, you just tell us in one sentence, You tell me, not the people.
Take it away, Dr. Chris.
The cabinet.
But Honorable
will-
Nandala is not the one who appointed the cabinet.
Yes.
He will meet the
I'll
president
meet the
and
president,
ask him.
but I
want to be speaking for government, so
Call
I can
the,
answer him.
call the switchboard and ask him.
I can answer him. The answer is,
I'll call him.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, the cabinet will deliver because we don't act as individuals, but we are a collective effort of members of cabinet supported by the civil service.
All
So
right.
we shall deliver.
Finally, Honorable
Unless if you are saying cabinet should be made of professors. Andrew said the President Amin appointed the professors and they failed within a few years.
All right,
So we shall
Honorable
deliver.
Mao, you
I
have
think
the
we
final.
have, we have expectations as citizens. The president has his own expectations. The voters have their own expectation of what cabinet means. Everybody has their expectation. But at the end of the day, we have a country called Uganda. And that's why I anchored my contribution on the idea of Ugandans seeing what they have never seen before, change without bloodshed. I want to thank the Honorable Ali Salaso for correcting me about the character I was talking about from the Bible. It was not Absalom, it was Adonijah. And I stand corrected on that one. Indeed, the Bible has suffered.
That's true. You're right about that.
The Bible has suffered.
Everybody's interpreting
Especially
the
at the
Bible.
hands of Christians. I wish it were non-Christians abusing the Bible. But in my case, it was a mix-up. So,
It was an innocent mix-up.
as we go to Parliament to discuss, we are going to hear this kind of debate playing over and over again. There are many people who are going to raise questions and expectations about who. I believe there are 4 parameters. There is paper qualification. On that one, the Electoral Commission cleared because the minimum is you must be qualified to be a member of Parliament.
But you know, Honorable Mao, the interesting thing is this. I have, from the outside, covered proceedings of the Appointments Committee. You'll be amazed at how many people have been thrown out of cabinet. And when you talk to members, they say there were issues about their academic qualifications, but these people were cleared by EC, and they remain in that parliament.
Well,
So that clearance is a bit what our friends in NOP will call.
you are the one who read the profile, and I want to take your word.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying practice.
I'm talking only about 2. I'm not talking about the rest of the cabinet. I'm talking
Okay.
about the debate coming tomorrow.
All right, on Monday.
Sorry, Monday.
Yes.
On Monday,
Tuesday.
On
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
yes.
So when you are going to talk about the vice president, the Americans say the vice presidency is a heartbeat away from the presidency. So if the president's heart stops, the one with the beating heart next is the vice president. So it is a decision which should not be taken lightly because that one is in the order of succession. It's like if you're a king, in the case of England, the Queen, you know, Prince Charles is a heartbeat away from the kingship of England. And those are the things. The other thing is that you have got to look at vice presidents across the board. You look at vice presidents in other countries where they are running mates, the bar is higher. For instance, the way Ruto is sourced is on the basis of what he brings to the electoral fight. When President Kennedy was running, it was about Texas. Texas came on board because of Lyndon Johnson. Unfortunately, the president was shot dead in Texas again, in Dallas, 1963. So now when you come to the prime minister, when they say prime, basically, if the cabinet was a pack of cards, the prime minister is the master of spades.
Prime space, prime sun,
Prime time.
prime time.
So the
Prime comes from the Latin word.
people
fast.
Is our prime.
you should forgive us if there is something we don't know. But we are only saying we are open to surprises.
All right,
we laughed at Joshua Keptegei. I think he's winning another gold tonight. We really guffawed away, and he surprised us. Okay. So, but for now, we should be forgiven for talking on the basis of what we know.
Thank you.
Because we are looking at, okay, if it is about Omuntu Wawansi, then we can say yes. I have seen they are saying the president was looking for people who are down to earth.
No, we have not eaten.
No, the president has demonstrated that democracy
that not the flamboyant people. So indeed, the most popular photo of the incoming prime minister is of her sitting on the ground. She's down to earth. Then the one of the incoming vice president, she's thrashing some either beans or peas, and one of them she's sitting at the table of men partaking of some brew. So if it is about being down to earth, I think that is what we have got. But I guess we are...
You can be down to earth.
All right. I
guess we are comparing them to their predecessors. But I believe very strongly that even though we talk about benefit of doubt, for now, we have to talk about what is on record.
Thank you.
But I wanted to add one thing about...
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll have about 7 minutes to conclude the show. But gentlemen, we're back on air. So these conversations, we'll have them after here. Welcome back. The last 5 minutes of the Frontline. Keep the questions and comments coming. Very interesting observations that people are saying. Some of the people here will never appreciate anything the president does. So they're expected to oppose. And someone is asking me to ask Dr. Baryomuzi to state the Twitter handle of his Minister of State designate for ICT. I think there was a rush to open one after the appointment. I think that the young people are asking, the ICT that they understand, and the one that Dr. Baryomuzi and the colleague...
I can answer that one.
Yes.
Someone also asked me,
yes,
why are you not active on Twitter? Because
you also opened yours in Russia.
I opened in 2016. But
not after the appointment.
2016. But maybe I've not been as active as our young people.
Yeah.
But I will be more active now that I am.
You'll learn on the job.
No, I know how to handle, but
It does a very good.
No. I've been very busy. I don't have that.
You're still going to be busy.
I don't have that time to be on Twitter and Facebook all the time.
Get a handler.
Yeah,
I'll recommend a good one.
I'll get a handler.
Thank you. Last 5 minutes. The president announced directives to deal with the pandemic, and I'm going to give everyone a minute to touch on that. I covered some of the most painful images that I have seen in my journalism career at Namaiba bus terminal. And I found school-going children sleeping on suitcases, sleeping on mattresses, and they had stayed there. They were hungry, some of them. The transport fare, I think, tripled. Gulu was 230,000 to go to Gulu and Karuma. Dr. Baryomuzi, it looks like the government just passed the directives, and I could feel for Colonel Edith Nakalema. She left Namaiba bus terminal at 3 a.m., coordinating rescue efforts for students who are stuck. And I am asking this government that is responsible for these things, what did we have in plan? How are we going to manage these remedies put in place to deal with the pandemic? Can we count on this government for a plan, for a way forward? I'll start with Dr. Chris.
Yes, I think the government has done its best to fight COVID. The task force, which was comprised of technical people, because we are in a transition for us, the political leaders, sat with the president and came up with the measures which the president announced. I agree, I think the transportation of students from schools to up-country was not done very well, and that overcrowding at the bus parks was very unfortunate, and also the business people who own buses now skyrocketing the prices to catch a fortune out of COVID was also very unfortunate, but we can do better. We are now going to reconstitute the National Task Force after we've been vetted and cleared and sworn in, and then continue. But the measures which the president announced, I think they were correct measures. And our appeal is that we should take heed and follow these measures, because it is a problem. We are continuing to lose people. This evening we lost the former, the outgoing chairman of Kabale district, Mr. Keiwa, and many more Ugandans continue to succumb to COVID. So we are committed as a government, but we call upon the population, the people, to follow the measures religiously, because any one of us could be announced dead the next moment, because COVID is hovering around, the virus is saturating the population, and more so the variants, which are giving a different character of the disease, and it's bad, the situation is very bad. But to assure Ugandans that we are going to mount a big response, including bringing in more vaccines, so that we can vaccinate as more people as possible, not until when we vaccinate the number which we must reach in order for us to attain what we call herd immunity. We shall remain with this challenge. And the appeal again is that once you are due and eligible for vaccination, please take this COVID vaccine, and we assure you that it is safe and efficacious or effective for that matter, because there are many Ugandans again who still have doubts about the vaccine.
Thank you. Honorable Norbert Mao, on the pandemic.
This pandemic has to be dealt with at many fronts. The president has the duty to give that general direction, and he should thank Ugandans who, by and large, have been very compliant, with the few exceptions. We now need to be vigilant. We have the international front. I have seen the Honorable Winnie Byanyima really fighting what is known as vaccine apartheid, namely making sure that all lives matter when it comes to vaccine. Our very own Ethiopian brother heading the WHO is at the forefront. This is where the AU has to act together. Our own ministry, I think, by being brutally honest, not sugarcoating anything, though I do not know how much information they are availing, but it helps to let Ugandans know that we are dealing with an enemy that keeps changing its character. Therefore, even if you are vaccinated, you are not safe, because you may get a variant which that vaccine cannot deal with. I have seen people talking about that. The G7 now, it used to be G8, now it is G7. I have seen they said they are going to release 500 million doses of vaccines. We need more so that we can have that. So in the country, there has got to be an approach which realizes that we need to cooperate with each other. And also, it should not be a security operation. This is actually managing civilians who need to survive. Everybody in Uganda is working for Mereyalero. You cannot tell somebody who hawks bananas that stay at home. You cannot tell a taxi tout that stay at home, or a boda, you can't tell them that stay at home. So there's need for flexibility on the part of the government. There is need for those who manage markets and so on to start enforcing those same SOPs. There was a time I failed to enter Nakasero market because I didn't have a mask, and then I had to wash my hands almost 6 times. Every stall had its own washing point. So we need to support these places where people gather. But above all, I agree with the Honorable Miriam Matembe. The problems of Uganda now will also need prayer and fasting.
Right,
it is also somewhere in the Bible.
All right, we'll ask Andrew to lead the fasting bit. Your take on the pandemic and how to go about it finally in a minute.
Well, I think that a lot of policy in Uganda has been driven by 2 things. One, we pick so much from the Western world and run with it. I think that the Western world are much more vulnerable to COVID because of older populations. Here, because our population is very young and also because we have bad healthcare systems, people have lived through hard times, their immunity is much higher. So we should not take the kind of measures they have taken in the West. The risk to us is not as high as those countries. Of course, the other driver has been President Museveni. He's excessively hygienic and very afraid of disease. You would call him a hypochondriac, to use a scientific word. And therefore, the scientists, when they talk to him, he also tends to take measures that are extreme. I personally think that Uganda needs to find a much more creative balance than the president argues. A creative balance between our health needs, our economic needs, and our social needs. I think that we have focused on health so much that we have paid less attention to economic and other social consequences. For example, how many people can COVID kill? And if you destroy the economy, what would be the effect of what you have destroyed in the economy on people's livelihoods, of them dying? So you have to be very balanced in looking at it. Take the example of closing schools. I was really disappointed. If you say you're going to close schools and give people 3 days to move, I wondered, do those people who sat in those meetings think, if kids have to leave school and go to tax parks, what are the measures for people to be able to get transport available to go to their homes without creating the kind of stampede that we saw? I saw you physically reporting from the ground. People went into bus parks, tax parks, congested there. They stayed there for 3 days. Very poor sanitation, limited the masks, limited sanitization, and I am sure those people are going to export the virus.
Actually, my colleague in Gulu, Benson Ongom, was reporting that about 560 tests conducted at Gulu University today registered 100 positives, and majority of them are the children who came from the bus park. So we had a super spreader for the 3 days.
So yes. I wondered, did my government have people to think about, if you're going to take a decision, you must think of the consequences. Did somebody say, if we take this measure of closing, especially boarding schools, these are the likely consequences when it comes to transportation? Because remember, even transport costs went up 3 times. Not only that, there were not enough transport to take people. So people stayed in backpacks for a long time, and therefore that created a super spreading effect, which could have been avoided if they discuss it. In any case, the young people are staying home are the least vulnerable group to COVID.
Is that still so?
Not anymore. With the new variants. Actually, the original Wuhan strain was affecting the old people like us. But now with the new variants, the UK variant, the Indian, South Africa, it also affects children. Even those 0 to 10, 10 to 19, they're also getting affected.
But why didn't they use the military trucks to...
No, when a soldier went down, eventually they appeared. But for me, I thought that my government should plan better. They should have
I think there was an
better.
oversight. There was a rush to take the children away because you see schools are crowded places. So there was not carefully done to see how to evacuate the children from the schools through the bus park to home. There was a missing gap. But the danger was, if you keep the children in school...
Everybody picks kids from school by a private car.
The danger was, if you keep the children in school when they are crowded, you could infect all the school population.
All right, thank you. Finally, Honorable Nathan, you'll have the last word tonight.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say, for us as Uganda, we need just God. Now, what this thing has demonstrated is very generous. I think planning is very bad. In Uganda, I've always said there's no planning. You don't know what you're doing. Now, you destroyed people's transport, those buses.
Which ones?
There was UTC, Uganda Transport Company, you know it. Those were buses, the train, which was basically would have helped these children. And you decided now to go and harass private entities at the bus park. That's why you're hiking the price. I have got an opportunity to make money because I'm going to be locked for 42 days. I should make money enough to take me 42 days. Those are the buses were. So one of the things is you are the ones who are a problem. Even this disease coming, you had known about it, you mentioned about India and whatever. Indians were flying in anyhow. Now they brought the thing, we have it. Now you are sending children from school, putting them at the bus park, going to villages, Now just multiply the effect. In the villages, they are going to affect their families, their neighbors. I don't know. That's why we must ask God. All these children now who have been traveling have carried everything instead of even was saying Wakiso, Kampala, Mukono cannot work. In fact,
Nandala, we should ask ourselves, Variomus, when children go home, is it true that it ends congregation? Because don't those children now end up in markets with their parents?
No, they're going to play with neighbors, even if you stop a market.
Yes.
They will be here.
Trying to avoid congestion in school, I understand it. But many of these kids, when they go home, I was the other day in Mbarara, I went through Mbarara market. You cannot walk through, the human congestion is so thick. So if those kids go into those markets, if you have not closed the markets across the country.
No, we expect that the parents will be responsible enough, first of all, if they can afford to do a test on those children, but also limit their movements. Because when you send the children out there, they are now scattered. They are not in a crowded place like a school. That was the wisdom about disbanding the school and scattering the children all over. And at family level.
Right, final.
You want the parents to test and they are going to pay. If they cannot afford the fare of the bus, where would they get 220,000 tests? I think we must let us be practical.
Are they tracing those who are being tested?
Are you tracing it? We tested. And they have told you 516 in Guru University. How many are from...
You can do rapid tests in our government
But why didn't you do it at the bus park when you got the children? I think you people have really brought us a problem. You want us to get finished. That's why you're having a cabinet of this nature, so that you have nothing. You want to rule.
You see, you don't have to politicize everything.
No, but this is very dangerous.
The creation of this government.
It is, because why we need to killing us, we would have really managed it by really
That's why Ugandans will never take you serious.
Thank you very much. This conversation needs to be sorted out of here. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Honorable Nathan. Thank you, Dr. Bariomuzi. And again, congratulations for your designation to the Minister of ICT.
Thank you,
Honorable
very much.
Norbert Mao, for your dedication. We certainly missed the Honorable Ofono. The word honorable is stuck in my mouth. Okay. Mr. Ofono Opondo.
The dishonorable Ofono Opondo.
The
No.
Executive Director of the Uganda Government Media
Center.
Center.
Of the groom the other day.
Yeah, I saw his son dragged him to church, which I think is a good thing.
I hope they developed another J.
We look forward to having OO next week. From me and the team, it's a good morning. Please take care. The pandemic is real. And to many of us now, the statistics are not so far away. It has hit so close. The loved ones have either been sick, some have been to ICU. People have lost others. And I go out there when I find people chin masking. I keep wondering, what are we up to?
There was a police officer covering his mouth, his nose was open. He was telling somebody who was chin masking, wear your mask properly.
Yeah. So I think that we need to do our bit.
There are many families here now who are having COVID.
If Ugandans don't take the measures, government may be forced to go to the lockdown, the complete lockdown, which we don't want.
We can't afford it.
Yeah, we can't afford it. But
see you again next Thursday, same time, same
The government
station.
itself cannot afford it.
NBS Frontline.